you for joining me on the journey. This is Completed Christianity. So, welcome back once again for our next episode of Being Complete, our continuing on with the exposing of this Hebrew Roots exposed documentary by Pastor Anderson. So last time we took a look at this verse, and if you missed it, go back to the last video so that you'll kind of be up to speed here. So let's play.
These things were a shadow of Christ, and with the priesthood being changed, there is made of necessity a change also of the law.
Okay, I mentioned this last video that is going to get into this change of the law. So when you cherry pick this out from the context of the whole book and the way that it's translated, it looks bad. But this word change in the Greek is not the Greek word for change, like to make something different. The Greek word is to transfer. And so that's what we got going on here. We got the priesthood being transferred from the Levitical priesthood back to the Melchizedek priesthood. So now the law, therefore, has to be transferred from the Levitical priesthood's administration back to the Melchizedek priesthood's administration. So that's what he's saying here. He's not saying that the law itself is being changed to a different law. That's not the intent. That's not the context. And it's not the word that's being used here.
Why does the Holy Bible have to be 66 books now? When obviously there was a book of Jasher, obviously there was a book of Enoch.
The book of Enoch is a ridiculous book. It hasn't been taken seriously.
Okay, the book of Enoch, I don't get too much into the book of Enoch. Is there some validity? Well, Jude thought there was because he quoted from it. So, some validity. But one problem with the book of Enoch is that, one, it's not written by Enoch, which is not that big a problem really in the ancient world, but it's written many years after Enoch and may even just been written just 100 or so years prior to the first century. So it is a book of fantastic things, and some of the numbers may have been even inflated, or maybe we don't understand the numbers, which is what he's fixing to get into here, like 450-foot giants. Let's let that play.
Throughout history, because of the nonsense found therein, such as giants that are 450 feet tall. It talks about giants being 300 cubits tall. Well, when the Bible refers to giants, it gives their proportions as being around 9 or 10 feet tall when you have examples like Goliath or Og, the king of Bashan. There's a big difference between a guy being 9 or 10 feet tall and being 450 feet tall.
Yeah, there's a big difference. But the thing is it's pretty much no more impossible for a giant to be 10 foot tall than to be 450 foot tall. Maybe it happened. I kind of think that some overzealous scribe along the way, got a little anxious with how many numbers he's putting down here or whatever. Something to that effect to possibly inflate the numbers. But we have archaeological evidence that there were giants that were taller than 9 or 10 feet. And that some of these, based on however they were conceived or birthed or whatever, some of these giants can be bigger than others, and maybe in different times, maybe before the flood, they were bigger than after the flood. Things like this, we don't know, but we do have archaeological evidence of giants that would have been at least 15 feet tall, and in some cases, maybe even 30 feet tall, but we don't quite know that exactly. There's a lot of wiggle room here, and with the book of Enoch, with it saying that they're so tall, one, Enoch didn't write that. It was written later. And has the book of Enoch, is it scripture? It's never, ever been considered scripture. Even in Judaism, it's never been considered scripture.
That's just ridiculous. And, you've got the sons of God and the daughters of men supposedly producing a child that's going to grow to be 450 feet tall.
Well, Genesis 6 tells us that this sort of thing happened. What the size was, but he does have a funny quip with this.
There's men supposedly producing a child that's going to grow to be 450 feet tall. I mean, that's straight out of the Weekly World News. I mean, that's just crazy. That's going to be a C-section for sure.
That's going to be a C-section for sure. Good line, Anderson. More so, what would happen was a baby that big, and maybe all of these giants, when they were birthed, would kill the mother.
If you're reading the book of Enoch, think to yourself, why are you reading it? Have you even read the entire Bible? Why are you seeking out extra biblical literature?
And I can't agree more with that particular point. If you haven't read all of the 66 books, there's not much point to go too much outside of that. There's places where you can have other people that you can get some references, and you can get some extra things that might potentially be valid information. And sometimes you don't know, you can't put your finger on it, but things that can expand some understanding and possibly help. But some things like that can also possibly deceive, and you got to have good discernment, which means that you have to be rooted in the 66 books that we already got. And like even in the 1611 King James, the original King James, there wasn't 66 books. There was 80. And 14 of them were taken out in the 1769 revision. And there's good evidences that those 14 books that were taken out, which we now call the Apocrypha, those books, there's evidence that the people that read those books didn't view them as scripture, even though they were in the King James.
It feels good to shake things that I used to believe in, and now I know that they're not true, and especially the names were just a major part of that. Just a major part of that.
The name is a major part. My understanding or my walk, when I began to have the revelation of the name of Yahweh versus the name of the Lord, it opened up so much more beauty, so much more reverence, so much more fear of who the Father is and what he can do. And getting a revelation of the name is wonderful. It'll blow up your relationship with him. And the revelation of coming back to the original name of the Messiah and not following in the transliterations of the name. It's like, say like I had the Mona Lisa. I'm going to give it away, but I got a copy here too. Which one do you want? Do you want the original or do you want the copy? You choose. I'll give you either one of them. Well, you're going to choose the original because the copy is basically meaningless at that point. So why are we going to settle for a transliteration of the name when we can go back to the original?
Especially the names were just a major part of that. Just a major part of that.
We are built upon the foundations of the apostles and the prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone. So again, going back to the foundation, Jesus is the chief cornerstone. He's the foundation of our faith and practice in all matters of our life.
So they put that in there, and it's like, it doesn't have anything to do with anything else. What the guy said is true in the persona of who the Messiah is, of course, but that just, it's like, you just left that out.
Nowhere in the Bible does it say Jesus is our Sabbath. And they say, well, no, Jesus is our Sabbath. And I've asked people on Facebook, show me book, chapter, and verse where it says that. They won't show it to me because it's not there.
So this is a doctrine that has sprang up and say, oh, well, the Messiah is our Sabbath, so we don't have to keep the Sabbath. That's just pat nonsense. Because you go back to the Ten Commandments, and historically in Christianity, they defend the Ten Commandments. They protest in front of courthouses, as we talked about before earlier on in this. Even though these people denounce the Ten Commandments, and historically Christians, they uphold the Ten Commandments, but they only uphold 9 of them, and the one that's about the Sabbath we disregard. But of the 10, only one of them says to remember it, and it's to keep the Sabbath. Remember to keep the Sabbath set apart. For 6 days work shall be done, but the seventh is a Sabbath of rest.
It will say, well, if Jesus kept the Sabbath, then I've got to keep the Sabbath too. But this passage will blow their minds, right? Look at John chapter 5, verse 15. This is a time where Jesus Christ healed somebody on the Sabbath day. The man departed, that's the one Jesus Christ healed, and told the Jews that it was Jesus which made him whole. And therefore did the Jews persecute Jesus and sought to slay him because he had done these things on the Sabbath day.
So this is a really weak argument that they're bringing forth here. Just to say that because he did something on the Sabbath and the Jews didn't agree with it, then he broke the Sabbath.
So Jesus did actually heal this guy on the Sabbath day. Did Jesus work on the Sabbath?
But Jesus answered them, my Father worketh hitherto, and I work.
So this, when you're not very educated, you're not very stable, I guess, if you want to use the terminology that the scripture use, you can easily make this error and you can easily not understand this. So let's take a look over here. Matthew 12:5. Or have you not read in the law how on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? So it's kind of what's going on here in the verse that they're talking about here where he heals on the Sabbath day. Well, he's doing his ministry. He's doing his ministry on the Sabbath day. He's not working to produce selfish gain. He's not working to provide for himself and stuff like that. He's not doing servile work as it says in the scripture. So let's take a look also at Mark 3. And he said to them, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days or to do evil, to save a life or to kill? And so he's saying here that what he's doing is he's doing good things for people. So why is that a bad thing on the Shabbat? He's serving other people on the Shabbat. This is not against the Father's law to serve other people, to do ministry. And so let's take a look back. We looked before at part of our quote here by Charles Haddon Spurgeon, who is said to be the Prince of Preachers. So back to this where he says that the Messiah did not come to change the law, he came to explain it, and that very fact shows that it remains, for there's no need to explain that which is abrogated or done away with. On one particular point, in which there happened to be a little ceremonialism involved, namely keeping the Sabbath, our master enlarged. He made it bigger. He showed that the Jewish idea was not the true one. The Pharisees forbade even doing works of necessity and mercy, such as rubbing ears of corn to satisfy hunger and healing the sick. Our master, Yeshua, he showed that it was not at all according to the mind of the Father to forbid these things in straining over the letter and carrying an outward observance to excess. They had missed the spirit of the Sabbath law, which suggested works of piety such as to truly hallow the day. He showed a sabbatic rest. It was not mere inaction. He said, my Father worketh hitherto and I work. He pointed to the priests that labored hard at offering sacrifices and said to them, the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless. They were doing divine service and were within the law. So that's that. And Spurgeon has it right. Anderson has it wrong. And that's it. Psalm 89:34, my covenant I will not break, nor alter the word that has gone out of my lips. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Comment down below. Comments of opposition are welcome. Just don't say anything dumb like we're not under the law. We're under grace because you've been taught to use that verse outside of the bounds of its intended context. Subscribe. Subscribe now. Smash that subscribe button and ring that bell so that you get notifications of all future videos.